You're standing in a muddy field somewhere in northern Europe. It's cold. Rain is dripping down your face. Across the valley, you can hear thousands of warriors screaming your name. Not because they like you, because they want to kill you. You grip your spear tighter. The men next to you do the same. Then you see them. A wall of barbarians charging downhill. Some are carrying axes bigger than your head. Some have painted faces. Some aren't even wearing armor. They're just running straight at you, screaming like maniacs. There are thousands of them. You have nowhere to run. And then your commander shouts a single order. Instantly, hundreds of shields slam together. The soldier beside you raises his shield over his head. You do the same. Within seconds, sunlight disappears. Wood, iron, leather. That's all you can see. You are now inside a giant moving box. A box made of men. The Romans called it the Testudo, the turtle. And for centuries, almost nobody could stop it. So how did a formation made of simple wooden shields become one of the most feared military tactics in history? This is how Rome turned ordinary soldiers into a walking fortress. To understand the Testudo, you first need to understand the problem. The Roman Empire wasn't fighting modern armies. It was fighting everyone. Gauls, Germans, Britons, Dacians, Parthians, thousands of tribes with different weapons, different tactics, and different ways of killing people. And one thing most of them loved was throwing stuff: arrows, javelins, spears, rocks, lots of rocks. Imagine standing in a field while hundreds of projectiles rain down from the sky. It doesn't matter how brave you are, you can't stab an arrow, you can't punch a spear, and you definitely can't dodge hundreds of them at once. Rome needed a solution, so they built one. The Roman shield wasn't small. It was called the scutum, almost 4 feet tall, curved like half a barrel, made from layers of wood glued together, covered in leather, reinforced with metal. A single shield could stop arrows. 100 shields could stop a storm. The idea was simple. The soldiers in the front held their shields forward. The soldiers on the sides turned theirs outward. The soldiers in the middle lifted theirs above their heads. When everyone locked together, the army became a giant armored shell. No gaps, no openings, no easy targets from above. It looked exactly like a turtle, hence the name. But here's the part movies usually get wrong. The Testudo wasn't some magical invincible formation. It had weaknesses. Huge weaknesses. The formation was slow, very slow. Running was impossible. Turning was difficult. If discipline broke for even a few seconds, gaps appeared, and gaps meant death. This is why the formation only worked for Romans. Most ancient armies would have fallen apart instantly. The Roman army didn't, because Roman soldiers trained obsessively every day, every week, every year. Roman recruits marched over 20 miles carrying equipment that weighed nearly as much as a modern soldier's pack. They practiced building camps. They practiced sword fighting. They practiced formations again and again and again. A Roman soldier could spend years drilling before ever seeing real combat. By the time battle arrived, moving into a testudo wasn't a decision. It was muscle memory, like breathing, like blinking, like tying your shoes. The moment the order came, hundreds of men moved together as if they were a single creature. And that's what terrified Rome's enemies, because they weren't fighting individuals anymore. They were fighting a machine. One of the best examples happened during the Roman invasion of Britain. The Britons loved attacking from hills and forests, perfect places for ambushes. One moment the Romans were marching peacefully, the next arrows and spears were falling from every direction. Most armies would panic. Romans did something different. They formed the testudo. Projectiles bounced off. Spears struck shields instead of flesh. The formation kept moving, slowly, steadily, like an armored tank crawling through chaos. Imagine spending months preparing an ambush. You hide in the trees, you wait, you attack, and the enemy simply turns into a giant turtle and keeps walking. That was the Roman experience. But the testudo's most famous use wasn't in open battle. It was during sieges, because castles and cities create a nightmare for attackers. When you're climbing toward a wall, the defenders are above you, which means they can drop literally anything. Arrows, spears, rocks, boiling liquids, broken bricks, entire chunks of stone. Without protection, soldiers died before reaching the wall. The testudo solved this problem. Roman troops would lock shields together and slowly advance. The roof protected them from attacks above. The front protected them from attacks ahead. The sides protected them from attacks beside them. Under that moving shield fortress, engineers could approach walls, place ladders, and bring siege equipment forward. It was ancient military engineering at its finest. But here's the crazy part. The formation wasn't really about shields, it was about trust. Think about it. You're standing inside the testudo. You can't see much, you can't move freely, you can't fight properly. Your survival depends entirely on the soldier next to you doing his job. If he panics, you die. If he lowers his shield, you die. If he runs away, you die. The formation only works when every single person trusts every other person. That's incredibly rare in human history. Most armies are collections of individuals. The Roman army was designed to act as one organism, and that may have been Rome's greatest weapon. Not the shield, not the sword, not the armor. The discipline. Because the barbarians were often stronger, sometimes faster, sometimes more numerous, but they struggled to match Rome's organization. A warrior can be brave. A formation can be unstoppable. And that's exactly what the Testudo represented. Not courage. Control. The ability to make hundreds of men move as one. Today, when we think about military power, we imagine tanks, fighter jets, and missiles. The Romans had none of that. Yet they conquered most of the known world. Partly because they discovered something humans still use today. A group of ordinary people working together can achieve things that no individual could ever do alone. The Testudo wasn't terrifying because of the shields. It was terrifying because it proved something. One man is vulnerable. 100 men acting as one are almost impossible to stop. And that's why, 2,000 years later, we still remember the turtle. Not as a formation, but as one of the greatest displays of discipline ever seen on a battlefield.